Hello.
Kind of an interesting weekend for you, Uriah. Give us the process. Like, what happens that you end up being the mystery man coming from behind the curtain to weigh in yesterday? How did this all happen?
It's kind of a long story, but basically, when they put these fights together, a lot of things could happen, and there was a issue right off the bat, and I think it was good for Song. Like, Song really was, because our gym has been closed. Like, we took the quarantine like real strict. There's about 8.5 weeks where has no one to train with, and he's just doing his own thing at home, and so the idea of fighting on short notice to him was like, oh no, and I had to, I think it's good for this kind of stuff. It's good for a young guy's mentality to say, look, I want to show you what you can do in 2.5 weeks. So we got on a crazy running schedule and did all this stuff that was like a jump start into basically a miserable process for him to make sure that he could go with a guy that's been preparing for 16 weeks or whatever. Marlon's running 15 miles a day, and Song's like, is all fluffy from eating Chinese food. So I told Shelby, yeah, we'll take the fight. And then the slightest little bit of pushback, and Shelby's having to do with all this different stuff, and he's like, somehow Cheeto heard that Song backed out, put a tweet out that said Song's a pussy and Uriah jump in, and so that put it in my head, like, I said, Shelby, just keep on trying to get this fight for Song. Worst case scenario, I'll be there. And before I left, we were told everything was okay, so I wasn't trained or anything. I was standing on the side while he's doing sprints on the treadmill, and I'm watching these guys spar. I did jump in and do 3 rounds, one with Cody, one with Song, and I think a second one with Song, and I did a couple of grind matches for 15 minutes. That was all I did. But I was like, you know what? I always preach to these guys, look, because they like to overthink, like, was this perfect, was that perfect? I told Cody this a long time and talk about it after practice. If a guy slaps you in the back of the head, grabs your girl's butt, and takes your beer, are you going to worry about if everything was perfect? You're going to whoop him. And so I kind of go into that mentality. I've built a skill set over a long time. I was not going to make 145 pounds because I was here 162 or 61 the night before when I got the call. And so I was like, all right. They're like, well, how much you weighing? I said, like 162. And he's like, can you get to 55? So I was like, all right. And so I skipped dinner and lost like 7 pounds in the next morning and was ready to rumble.
So you're cutting weight alongside your guy on Friday morning?
Well, I let him cut weight first because I was going to weigh in 11. I did some shadow boxing, and then I cut my weight when he was done. It was a weird. This whole the world is super weird right now. Yeah. And honestly, I was happy not to be fighting because I wasn't prepared. But I would have done it, and I'm glad that Song stepped up because his initial thing was he wanted to prepare. He wants to take this serious as his career. But we're working on his mental game because, as you guys know, he's got this skill set. He's got a love for fighting. He loves the battle. He's sent himself all around the world since he was a little kid trying to pick up tips. He was telling me when he went to Thailand when he was 16, he was running 10 miles a day because the coach told him to. And then he asked his parents to get in the Shaolin monks when he was a 10-year-old, and they're doing 8 hours a day in lines. And he flew himself out when I think he was a teenager to meet us in Sacramento. And I'm like, look, this kid loves to fight. He's got the champion mentality. Something like this should be a lesson for him as he moves towards getting that strap. He's young.